their mouths and speak against the wrongs of any government. I am saying to you, my dear people, that is false Christianity. That is not the truth they are speaking to us. You see, God well knew that over time, men's hearts would wax cold and colder, and they would become more and more evil in their characters. So he allowed principles over the ages to develop concerning rights and freedoms, so that when the time comes when man wants to rule over the consciences of his fellow men and abuse his authority position like that, the people would assert their rights and freedoms, having knowledge about those things to speak against such abuses. But now you have so-called ministers of the gospel who want to shut us up and who want to blind our eyes. They want to put a cloak over our eyes that we may not see, that we may not assert our God-given rights and freedoms. And I want to show you the kind of wickedness that they would rather we shut up and not speak out about that is going on, that every Vincentian ought to know about, and that every Vincentian, Christians especially, ought to take a stand against, because we profess Christ and we profess to have high moral standards. And so it is a perversion when those who say they are Christians come and tell us, keep quiet, subject yourselves to government, even to wickedness in government. That is not right at all. Let me show you what's been happening. Take, for example, in the media on the weekend gone, February 19th to be exact, 2011, Saturday, February 19th, 2011, we have an article surfacing called Venezuela's Allies Tell OAS Chief Not to Meddle. What is that about? Now, the OAS is the Organization of American States. And what you have happening, and I'm going to read from the article for you. It says here, Latin American allies came to the defense of President Hugo Chavez's government on Saturday, telling the head of the Organization of American States not to meddle in Venezuela's domestic affairs. Nations belonging to a left-leaning bloc led by Venezuela and Cuba accused OAS chief Jose Miguel Insulza of being a pawn of the U.S. government, which has urged Chavez's administration to allow an international investigation into alleged human rights abuses. So let's get the facts straight. America says Jose Miguel Insulza, the chief of the Organization of American States, should be allowed to go into Venezuela to investigate allegations of human rights abuses that are going on there. Venezuela says, no way, don't meddle in our affairs. And furthermore, Venezuela's allies or friends, and I'll tell you who they are just now, joined with Venezuela and said, don't meddle in our affairs. It goes on. Dozens of Venezuelan students participating in a hunger strike are demanding that Insulza, the chief of the OAS, look into their allegations that the government improperly uses judges and prosecutors to persecute Chavez's political adversaries. And then they quote somebody. Listen to this. We demand that the Secretary General of the OAS stop his attacks against Venezuela's government. Members of the Bolivarian Alternative for the Nations of Our America, or ALBA, said in a joint statement. So you see who is telling the OAS not to meddle in Venezuela's affairs? ALBA. Members of ALBA said in a joint statement to the OAS that they demand that the Secretary General of the OAS stop his attacks against Venezuela's government. What attacks? Just wanting to go in to investigate allegations of human rights abuses? If you're an innocent government, why would you be afraid of somebody coming in to lawfully investigate allegations of human rights abuses? You sound like a guilty government to me. And to think that ALBA members will support that. And remember who is a part of ALBA? St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And I'll read it for you here. It says, Insulza said Friday that he has repeatedly asked for permission to travel to Venezuela, and Washington has said Caracas should let Insulza visit. ALBA members, including Bolivia, Nicaragua, Ecuador, Dominica, Antigua and Barbuda, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines, said Insulza's actions could bring about the possibility of, quote, a dangerous return to the times when the OAS was an instrument of interventionism and colonialism of the United States. Here we have ALBA. They list to you who the countries are that are saying to the chief of the OAS, don't meddle in Venezuela's affairs. St. Vincent and the Grenadines included in that. Now remember, St. Vincent and the Grenadines became a member of ALBA through the signature and through the agreement of our Prime Minister, the Honorable Ralph Gonsalves. And now you're telling me that our Prime Minister is joining with Venezuela in refusing an international body that we belong to, the Organization of American States, even a regional body, refusing them opportunities to come in and investigate the allegations that students in a hunger strike have been making against the government of Venezuela? Why would our Prime Minister take such a stance? Let me finish the article. The hunger strikers, have been protesting since January 31st in front of the OAS offices and several embassies in Caracas and in other cities. The hunger strike began with roughly a dozen students, but organizers say more than 60 people are now participating. They say they are subsisting on only water and saline solution. Chavez denies his government persecutes opponents. That's the end of the story. My dear people, what do we have here? We have a situation where our Prime Minister is joining with ALBA in refusing the chief of the Organization of American States, which we belong to, and which, as far as I know, Venezuela belongs to. I stand corrected there. But is joining with Venezuela in refusing the chief of OAS entrance into Venezuela to investigate allegations of human rights abuses being made by students who are on hunger strike. What kind of thing is that? Our Prime Minister is standing against human rights? That is what he is saying to us. If the Venezuelan government is not guilty of persecuting its opponents, political opponents of Chavez, and is not guilty of abusing the human rights of Venezuelans, why would Venezuela and Hugo Chavez and ALBA, including our Prime Minister, why would it be afraid of the OAS chief going into Venezuela to investigate? Why? And on top of that, I ask myself these questions, and you must ask it too. We have students studying in Venezuela. What if something were to go wrong that affects them, and they decide to stand with the Venezuelan students and protest? Would our Prime Minister stand in defense of our students, or will he stand in defense of his agreement with ALBA? This is a terrible, terrible betrayal of our trust as a people. We want to know that our Prime Minister stands in protection of people's human rights, not against any lawful investigation of human rights abuses, allegations. This is very troubling and concerning for us at the Thusian Institute for Religious Liberty, because we understand the importance of the protection of the rights and freedoms of all men, not just in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, but even in Venezuela. And if the Venezuelan people are saying, according to these students who are on hunger strike, that their human rights are being abused in Venezuela, and they are calling upon regional bodies like the OAS to investigate it, why should the Venezuela president stop that? And on top of that, more importantly for us as Vincentians, why should our Prime Minister, in our name, because St. Vincent and the Grenadines is a member of ALBA, why should he, in our name, be joining with Venezuela in saying no to the OAS to go in and investigate those allegations of human rights abuses? This is not good for our image as a country. We should not go down in record as a country standing against investigation of allegations of abuse of human rights. We should go down rather standing for such investigations, because we are a pro-rights country. But alas, I fear our Prime Minister is tainting the image of our blessed land by standing with Venezuela in this matter. And on top of that, it shows how concerned we ought to be as to how he will treat our human rights. Look at what is happening in Libya, for example, where the people are protesting against the dictator Gaddafi. And you have Gaddafi calling upon his supporters to come out and fight the protesters, calling them cockroaches and cats and rats, and telling his supporters they must come out and fight them. They must kill them. Our Prime Minister has joined with Gaddafi in the past, as in foreign relations. He even went to visit Libya. What's the position he would take now? Is he going to join with Gaddafi in calling out his supporters to kill his own people in Libya? Or is he going to stand for the rights of Libyans? I am worried about that, because here in this article, by standing with ALBA and telling OAS, no, you can't come into Venezuela to investigate things, then he is standing against the human rights of the Venezuelans. But as we go into the last 5 minutes or so of our program, I want to point you to another article that is very eye-opening. And I want to do this very quickly because we don't have a lot of time left. This one was written on the 18th of February, that's Friday the 18th of February 2011, and it came out in a newspaper called El Universal in Venezuela. That's in Spanish. And it's called Supreme Tribunal of Justice, The Wall. This story is saying, I'm reading a portion, every complaint against Venezuela's president, Hugo Chavez, bounces at the Supreme Tribunal of Justice. 68 decisions show how. And this year, the Attorney General Office has the green light to file charges against claimants. What is happening in Venezuela? It is being reported to us that the Supreme Tribunal of Justice, or the Supreme Court of Justice, is being used as a wall to stop all complaints that come against Hugo Chavez. This is 68 decisions over a period of time from 2000 to 2011 have been brought. 68 claims have been brought against the president, and all of them have been stopped. And it is being alleged here that the Attorney General's Office, the Supreme Court of Justice in Venezuela, and even the Office of the Public Prosecution act as a wall to stop anybody from getting through to successfully prosecute the president of Venezuela. That is cause for concern, because what we see here with the amendment to the Criminal Procedure Code is what appears to us to be an attempt to stop any matter that is brought against the Prime Minister and his high officials in government, to stop any matter from going through. And what we've seen in this news article is that it's the same thing happening in Venezuela. That's why I say our Prime Minister, through these amendments, is trying to Chavezize our country. He's trying to bring St. Vincent and the Grenadines the way Chavez has Venezuela. Let me read quickly to you a portion of it. It says here, all the cases involving government senior officers are ruled on their behalf, that is on behalf of the government senior officers, or are somewhere there contained. The tendency is that anything brought against government high officers, they get through. The ruling is made on their behalf. It's never against them. And the people of Venezuela are concerned about this. It says here, only when any of these people falls from the favor of Chavezism, decisions are taken against. In other words, only if you who bring the claim, you happen to be not in favor of Chavezism, or you fall out of friendship with his way, you know for sure the decisions are going to be against you. You see what is happening? So there's no equality. There's no equality for everybody who brings a claim, regardless of who you are, whether you're a supporter of Chavez or not. Once you're not a supporter, for sure the decision of the judge is going to be against you. If you're a Chavez supporter, it is on your behalf if you're being complained about. This is wrong. This shows bias, it shows prejudice, it shows these bodies in Venezuela, like the court and so on, are not independent. They're politically influenced and biased. And this is our concern here too. Why we feel so much power should not be put into the hands of the DPP. And this is what is going on in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and I'm telling you, it mirrors what is happening in Venezuela. There are other things in the article. I can't go into it much detail now, but I want to surely read this last part for you. It says here, sure enough, the Tribunal of Supreme Justice and the Public Prosecutor Office have turned into a wall that prevents citizens from filing charges against public officers who abuse their authority. They seek to spread terror this way. Did you hear that, my dear people? In Venezuela, they are complaining that the Public Prosecutor Office, like the DPP office, the court, have turned into a kind of wall that blocks citizens from filing charges against public officers who abuse their authority. And they say they are doing this to terrorize the people. Is this not the same concern we have in St. Vincent and the Grenadines as I end off? My dear people, I warn you, there's an agenda. There's an agenda on the part of our Prime Minister to bring about the Chavezization of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Remember that term, the Chavezization of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And it is against our rights and freedoms. But our time is up. Remember to call us 528-1015 or 432-5268. The information is at the bottom of your screen. Remember, your rights come from God, not from the hand of the state. You ought to assert your rights and defend them. And governments ought to protect them, not to take them away. To take them away is communism, and you must stand in protest against that. Come out on the protest March 3rd and protest for the protection of your God-given rights. Thank you. Amen.
Everybody wants freedom. Everybody wants freedom. Freedom of thought. Freedom to talk. Everybody wants freedom. Everybody wants freedom. Freedom of speech. Freedom to teach.